What if I told you that you could take a few simple shapes and turn them into this beautiful rendered floor lamp? And what if you could do it using only Blender's most basic core features without getting tangled up in a bunch of complicated tools? Well, that's exactly what we are going to do today. We'll build everything from the base all the way to the lampshade, using a handful of separate meshes and a powerful stack of modifiers for each one. Before we jump in, let's talk for a second about prep. Every good project, whether it's a house or a 3D model, starts with a plan. For us, the plan starts with gathering some reference images. This is where it all begins. First, we'll add the reference image to our viewport. To do that, you press Shift and A, then you go to Image and you go to Reference. And the pop-up will ask you to select the file. Once you select the file, it appears in the viewport, but it is placed very randomly. For that, to fix that, you click on the object, go to Rotation. If you don't have this window, press N. If you press N, the window will pop up. And in the rotation, drag on both X, Y, and Z all together and click on 0. This will set the rotation to 0 in all the axes. Now we need the image to be vertical in the viewport. For that, you go to X rotation and put 90. So now the reference image is vertical. But whenever we're adding something, everything will be added at the world origin or wherever your cursor is at. So to make sure that your lampshade is in the correct orientation for the reference, we have to bring it up pressing G and Z and make sure that the base of the lamp is matching to our world cursor or the midpoint of the viewport. Once that's done, you need to move it a little bit back. So just same process again, grab with G, Y axis, and you move it a little bit behind your world origin. All right, so now we know the reference size. We know that the total height in the reference image shows it's 59.5 inches. Let's take 60 inches for our example. 60 inches is 5 feet. 5 feet. So in the last episode, we have discussed how to make your grids default into feet. So now we know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is 5 feet. And we need to reduce the size and make sure the lamp fits in 5 squares. So we press S to scale the image. And again, grab G and Z to bring it down and make sure the lamp is 5 feet tall. Now there we go. Now we have the lampshade, which is exactly 5 feet height. It is important to work in actual sizes. When making for real projects, actual size matters. Let's start with our first object by pressing Shift A and adding a mesh, a cylinder mesh. This will be our main base. But before that, go to the settings of the mesh. Make sure you have enough vertices to work around. 32 is completely fine. And the radius, the depth, and everything we can adjust later. But the vertices is a little bit difficult to adjust later on. So make sure you have enough vertices to work around. All right, now since the base is added, we'll go into perspective front view. To do that, you can click on the -Y axis. So it will give you the front view. Once you are in the front view, adjust the cylinder to match the same width as our reference image. So we just scale it down until you see the reference image's base. Also need to move the image little bit to the side so it is exactly in the center and mirrored to our meshes. All right, since that's sorted, we will reduce the size of the mesh of the cylinder by Z axis, but because we don't need that much height. So scale, press S, and Z axis, now it will shrink in size like this. Now we need to match the 9.8 inches. How to do that? In the transform section, if you don't have this window, again press N, it'll pop up that window. And in the dimension sections, not the scale, the dimension section, go to X and Y and you press 9.8, and the shortcut for inches is double quotes. Now you press enter and it will automatically fix the base to 9.8 inches. So now we know that the base diameter. So now here you see our base is already ready. Now let's add the remaining parts of the base. Okay, so now I'll show you a simple trick. You see this part. This part is a tapered effect. It goes like this. So now what we do is add a new object. Now we're not continuing with the cylinder. Cylinder is just for the base. We'll add a new object. We'll add a plane. We'll add a plane. We'll rotate the plane on the x-axis by 90 degrees. Once we do that, make it smaller, bring it up. Now you go to edit mode. In the last episode, we taught how to go to the edit mode by pressing tab. Once you press to edit mode, you go to vertexes, you select A, all the vertexes by dragging or pressing A, and press M to merge all at one single point. So at center. So now you have a single vertex. Now we have a single vertex object. Now you place it in the single vertex object. Now you will be wondering, how do you make this shape with this one single vertex? And that's what the magic of modifiers are for. All right, let's begin. So we have one shape. Now we need to trace out the profile of this shape. So with one vertex selected, press E to extrude that vertex to another vertex. You just place it according to where you feel like the shape is going to be. So 1, 2, 3. You just keep on going. So one thing to notice is the reference image is in a perspective, but you are doing it in a profile. So you have to wing it where you need the cuts. So that will be a straight line there, and you go like this. Then you go straight down like this. You go down, you go small tapering there, you go down again little bit, you go another tapering over there, then you go down again, then you go slight tapering, then you go slight to the left, then you go down on the Z axis. So I'm pressing Z to align it properly on my Z axis. So now you have the shape. That's it. Now how to make it into the shape of this structure. Now we'll get out of edit mode. Now we have the shape we need. All right. Now this is not smooth. This is just one vertex point after one vertex point. All right. Now first we'll go to the modifier section, which is the blue wrench icon. Now we'll add a screw modifier. A screw modifier is something which will take that mesh and make it into a 360-degree screw. So right now it's not appearing properly because we are not in the right axis. So if you go into the right axis, which is Y axis, you get the shape with just a few vertex lines. You don't have to create the whole mesh. You just got that shape, the base of the shape, with one single vertex line and one single modifier. That's the magic of modifiers in Blender. It can do a lot of things. These are the basic modifiers. There are a lot of modifiers, and I will teach you all in the future episodes. Now since we have added the screw modifier, it's still sharp at some places. You see this edge is sharp. This is a sharp area. What we need to do is add a subdivision modifier on top of the screw modifier. Make sure the subdivision modifier comes next after the screw. It will be a big problem if the subdivision comes first. I'll show you right now. If the subdivision is first, it will slightly change our shape. So if the subdivision is second, it applies the screw first, then subdivision second. Now you have the subdivision surface. you just give it a levels viewport of 2. 2 should be good, and you'll get a good, nice, smooth base. We'll do the same for the base with adding a subdivision modifier first. But here's the thing, when you add a subdivision modifier, it'll completely change the shape. This is not what we want. This is not what we want. We want only the sides to be smooth and the top to be flat. There's two ways to fix this. Some people will add a bevel modifier first, then add a subdivision modifier. Second, they will add another loop cut by pressing Ctrl R in edit mode and just bringing it very close to the top line and the bottom line. It'll give you a small bevel effect as well and the smoothness you require. The third option is, I'll undo this before showing the third option. You select the edge loop, you go to mean crease. Crease applies to subdivision modifier to not apply to that area. So you select that edge loop by pressing Alt and clicking on the edge, one of the edge, it will select the whole loop. You increase the crease. Now you see, when you increase the crease to 1, that area, that edge loop will not be affected by the subdivision modifier. You can do the same for the bottom one. And there you go. You have the subdivision on the sides, but not affecting the edges. You can increase the subdivision if you want to make it smoother. And there you go. There you have a very smooth base for the lamp. Now, bevel option can also be used. For example, I'm just going to remove the crease here. Just remove the crease completely. So we're going to remove the subdivision first. Let's add a bevel modifier. Now you have a bevel modifier, but the bevel is kind of stretched. So to fix that, you press Ctrl A and you all transform the object. Once you all transform, the bevel should work perfectly. So you have too much bevel on this, so you reduce the bevel. So now you have a small bevel on the object. Once you have the bevel, you can add a subdivision surface again and adjust the bevel accordingly. So then now it's also has the same effect as giving another edge loop. You can increase the amount of smoothness you want by adding the level viewport and render settings in the subdivision settings. So the reason why I like the crease method than adding a bevel method is because you can adjust the crease. All right, there you go. I adjusted the crease. Now if I add a bevel on top of the subdivision, it becomes much more smoother and beveled. So we reduce the bevel and increase the segment of the bevel. It's much more smoother this way. First, but if you don't add the crease and just add a bevel and subdivision, some artifacts might pop up from my experience. But we'll just bevel this a little bit more bevel, like smooth, nice and smooth. So now, what if you want the bevel only on the top and not on the bottom? There is a solution for that too. So in the bevel settings, instead of limit method to angle, you select it to weight. It's gone. The bevel is gone. How will you fix that? You go to edit mode, you select the edge loop where you want the bevel, and you go to the mean bevel weight and make it 1. And the bottom one is still 0, so the bevel is not applicable there. So the bevel will only apply on the top part of the base. All right, now let's refine our ornament a little bit more. So how to do that? So we go to the edit mode, hide our screw in the modifier section. Now we need to add more vertices between some areas to make it like the reference. For example, here it is sharp, but our design is going really smooth if you see the subdivision surface. So to fix that, you add another vertex and just press G once and G again to slide it in the same line. So you add one over there, then you add one more with Control R and move it up there. So now the shape has a sharper edge. So you do few more wherever you like, just to make these lines smoother. If you don't use a subdivision modifier, you'll have to add a lot of points. Now we just work our way like this. We have everything. We have made this place a little bit more sharper. We need the same thing over here. You have to press G twice to slide it inside the line itself. There one, we'll put one over here, and we'll put one over here. All right, the top part looks fine. We'll add one over here as well. The top part looks fine. And let's just turn on our screw modifier and see how it looks now. See, it looks much more refined, much more sharper at edges. The tapering effect is much more visible, and it looks really close to our reference image. So adding more vertices at points where you feel like it needs little sharpness, you will achieve the shape much easier. Now you have the base, you have the ornaments for the base, and now next step is the stem. Now if you notice carefully, the stem is a straight cylinder with small handle ring in the middle. All right, let's add the stem of the floor lamp. So we add a cylinder, we'll add a cylinder, 32 vertices again. We'll scale it down, scale it down, scale it down, scale it down. So I feel like this is a 1-inch pipe. So we'll go to the X and Y dimensions and put 1 inch. That's exactly a 1-inch pipe. To adjust the height, you can just drag the Z axis by clicking, but it's too fast. To make it slower, you can hold the shift button, so it's smoother. Once you have the height you need, you can press G and Z to adjust it where you need. Another way to edit the height according to your reference is go to the edit mode using tab, go to the vertex mode, turn on toggle X-ray. That way you can select all the vertexes on either of the sides. If you don't turn on toggle X-ray, and when you select it, it only selects the front half. But when you select toggle X-ray and you select it, it'll select the entire thing. Once you have selected all the vertexes, you go back to your orthographic view, press G and press Z to move it up. So this is exactly where we need our pole to end. Now you have the base, you have the ornament for the base, and you have the stem. Now you see there's a small ring in the center of the stem. So how to add this? To add this, you go to edit mode. But I'm not going to add it as a separate object. I'm going to add it in the stem itself. So to add it, you need to have edge loops. So to add an edge loop, the shortcut is Control R. You click on Control R, you click on it, you drag it down, and you just stop right there. You need one more edge loop. So you click again, you click on here, you bring it up, you put it right there. Now there is a ring which is made by edge loops. Now you go to face mode, you select by pressing Alt and clicking, you'll select all the faces around that edge loops. Now all you have to do is add one more edge loop in the middle like this, and just leave it exactly right in the middle and scale it outwards. Little bit more like this. But why? This is where we're going to add another subdivision modifier to the pipe. So once you add the subdivision modifier, you see it became distorted. How to fix this? Again, with crease. So where do you need the crease? You go turn on the X-ray mode. You don't need the crease on the entire object. You need the crease on the bottom by selecting edge selection with 2. You can select the edge loop at the bottom and increase the crease. Now the same thing, you don't need the crease over here in this edge loop. You select that edge loop, you increase the crease. Now you don't need in the same at this point, this edge loop over here, you increase the crease. And the bow and at the very top as well, you don't need the subdivision to work. So you increase the crease. Now if you go out of the X-ray mode and you see the object in the middle, it is a ring which is smooth. This is still not perfect. So you can just increase the number of the subdivision in the subdivision modifier settings. And also you can right click and shade auto smooth to give the entire thing a smooth feel. So now we have the small ring around the pipe, which is still intact and not a separate object. Right, now let's make the harp to fit the lampshade. So what is a harp? The harp is a metal ring around the top and the bottom of the lampshade to hold the lampshade in place. How do we do this? Okay, let's make another new object with Shift A and you add a circle. And we'll bring the circle up right around there. Now we know it is 17 inches according to the dimensions which is provided by the reference. So we'll go to X and Y and put 17 inches. All right, so that's the bottom of the base. Now we'll go to edit mode and select the vertex mode and delete half of this vertexes. Why? I'll show you. Now instead we'll add a mirror modifier. Now this is another modifier, mirror modifier. What it does is it creates exactly half on the other side of the axis given in the mirror settings. So you only have to edit one side and the other side will be edited automatically. Okay, now we have the bottom part of the harp. Now make sure you turn on clipping in the mirror modifier so things won't go past the middle section. If clipping is off, the middle section can wander off and make artifacts. So make sure the clipping is on, and what you need to do is copy the exact same thing for the top part of the harp. Now scale it down just like that, just like that. So now we have the top part of the harp and the middle part of the harp. Now what we need to do is attach both of them together. So we select both and press Ctrl J to join. Now go to the top view, you select this vertex and this vertex on the left side of the lamp harp. Then you go to a perspective view and press F, and you can see both the vertexes has been filled by another edge. So now this is a shape we have. Now there's one more thing left, the support onto the lampshade. How to do that? You go again to the top view, you select this and this vertex, which is equally distant to make the support. So once you select this, you extrude from there and you go to the center point. And same thing, you just extrude and go to the center point. And in the center, you can select both the vertexes and click on M and click at center. Now you have the support for the harp. The top is still not being supported. The top is still hanging around. So we'll do the same for the top as well. You select this vertex, extrude it inwards, and select this vertex, extrude it inwards. Then you select both of them and click on M and merge at center. The other half is done automatically because we have the mirror modifier on. Now, since our shape is done, the harp structure is done, we have to reduce the height of our stem a little bit with turning on X-ray, because I completely forgot about the bulb. Once we put it right where we need the bulb at, just stop it right there. Right, that's where our bulb will go. So the top part you see in the reference image, the top part, this one, that comes out of this edge here, right here. This shape right here is just lines and vertexes. It doesn't have a depth. So how will you give depth to this? It also has to look like pipes. So first we'll alt transform this, Control A, alt transform. All right, we'll apply the mirror. We'll apply the mirror modifier. And after applying the mirror modifier, we need to do a few things. There are two vertexes right here. We need to merge again that in the center, and two over here as well, which also has to be merged in the center. Now you add a subdivision surface to this to make it a little bit smoother. See, everything is smoother right now. And you apply the subdivision modifier. After applying, you convert it into a curve by right clicking and convert to curve. Now this is a curve object. It has nodes. Now what you do, you go to the curve data, you go to geometry section right here, you increase the depth of the bevel 0.1 feet. That will give you a nice looking wireframe pipe for your harp. You can right click on it, shade smooth to make it smoother. So now you have your base, the ornament for the base, the stem, and the harp. So far so good, yeah? By the way, we are getting into some core concepts here, and if you are finding the step-by-step approach helpful for learning Blender's powerful tools, this is a great time to hit subscribe and ring the bell icon. That way you won't miss episode 3, where we'll get into texturing, materials, shading, and rendering. Your support really helps the channel grow and lets me know I'm making useful stuff. Thanks a lot. Let's get back to it. All right. Next thing we need to make is the bulb holder and the bulb. The bulb and the bulb holder is pretty straightforward. You add another object, Shift A. You need to add a UV sphere. Once you add a UV sphere, you bring it up. This is for the bulb. You scale it down. Okay. Once you are ready with the bulb's base top shape, once you go to edit mode, you turn on proportional editing. What proportional editing does is when you move something, it proportionally moves the other vertexes or objects with it. For example, I'll select with the X-ray on, I'll select these set of vertexes. I press G to move it, but now the vertex selection is right inside the circle. I can use the scroll wheel to reduce the selection, and I can just move, and the other things inside the selection will automatically move and edit accordingly. So I'll move this down, I'll press the scale button. Now I can select this edge loop and use the scale button again, and I can bring this back up, and there you go. You have a light bulb shape. Now the light bulb usually has a flat bottom, so we just gonna delete these edges, vertexes, that means. Then we're gonna extrude this straight to the bottom. So now we have a bulb shape. Now same thing, we're gonna auto smooth this and give a subdivision surface modifier. There we go. Now bulb is ready. That's a nice looking bulb. Now we need to add the holder for the bulb. To add a holder for the bulb, you shift A, you add a cylinder. You make sure you turn off proportional editing with the shortcut is O. Then you bring the cylinder up, scale it down, just make it a little bit bigger than our stem pipe, scale it down again, and just bring it up and just drop it right there. And just bring the bulb a little bit down. There we go. And now we have our bulb holder. Make sure you auto smooth that as well. Now you have the bulb holder, your bulb, your stem, and your harp. Now we need to add the lampshade. So I don't want a straight plain lampshade. I want a little bit curve to the lampshade. So for that, I need to adjust the harp first. Let's adjust the harp by selecting the edit mode and selecting these two vertices. And this is not a mesh. This is completely a curve. So you will not see mesh data on this. You will see curve data. So you scale this on the x-axis and move it a little bit inwards like this. Now to make the lampshade, we'll use the first same step which we made for the ornaments. We'll add a plane, rotate it on x-axis on 90 degrees, bring it up here, go to edit mode, go to vertex mode, select all by pressing A, then press M to merge everything to center. Now we have a single vertex. Move that vertex to where you need your lampshade to begin. Then step 1, you extrude this right here, and third extrusion should be at the bottom of the harp. The first extrusion needs to be a little bit higher, otherwise the harp will be visible. There you go. Now what will we do? We add a screw modifier. We'll add the screw modifier, but we need to wrap it around this stem. So we select the axis object as our stem, and there you go. Our lampshade is done. But there is a little bit of sharpness to it. So what we'll do, we'll add a subdivision modifier. Subdivision modifier done. But the top part, the harp is slightly coming out, and the bottom as well. So we adjust our vertices in edit mode and just manually just give it some breathing space. We can add another point to our viewport view in the subdivision to make it a little bit more smoother. You right click on it, you shade auto smooth. That's this point to go. Now we have the lampshade sorted. Now we need to add this top ornament and this bottom ornament. We'll use the same process for the bottom ornaments. We'll add a plane, rotate it on x-axis on 90 degrees. For that, shortcut is RX, and you type 90 on the keyboard. It'll automatically rotate to the 90 degrees. You go, place it, edge mode, vertex select. You select all the vertexes, press M, and click on Edge Center. Now we have a single vertex. You move that vertex where you need, right there. Okay. Now you just keep extruding it outwards like this, like this. Make sure there are multiple edges wherever you want smoothness, wherever you want like sharp edges, like this, like this, like this, like this. You just keep on going, keep on going. One more point over here. Now, there we go. You will have finished it by now. So then after doing this, you have your object right there. You do the screw modifier. And again, same thing, access object should be the stem. There you go. Then you add a subdivision modifier, subdivision surface, and you increase the viewport levels 2 and you shade smooth. The top part can be done the similar way, but here we'll just add a sphere for now. We added a sphere, we bring it up, place it on top of the harp. Make sure your object is combining all the 4 harps. Here you can just shade auto smooth, that's it. Now your lamp is done, but few things are missing. The small switches which is hanging from inside. Now here I'm going to show you another modifier. So let's just say we have our stem. We need the switches to come from the bulb holder or the stem. So what will we do? We'll add the pipe for the switches first. So we'll add a mesh and a cylinder. The cylinder is added. We'll bring it up. We'll scale it way down. Way down. You just set it right around here, which is not visible outside. Little bit more up. You rotate it in y-axis, scale it in x-axis. Now this is where your switches will hang from. The mechanism, wiring mechanism, everything will be from inside, so that you don't have to worry about, that the engineers will worry about. So again, shade smooth for that. Now here is another thing. So how is this made? This is made by a small pipe, a small cylinder, and on that cylinder you have a bunch of small beads, and the bottom you have a bigger bead or just a sphere. All right, so let's make it here separately. We'll move it and attach to it later. So we'll add a new cylinder. All right, this cylinder has to be really tiny. So you just keep making it smaller and smaller and smaller. There we go, very tiny. But on the z-axis you make it little longer. That much should do. Again, on the x-axis, y-axis, you need to make it smaller. So z-axis I don't need to change. So I press scale on S and shift Z, so the z-axis doesn't change. You make it still smaller, very thin, very slim, and you see if it matches the thickness which we need. All right, looks good to me. Now we need the beads. So the beads are just basically a sphere. We'll add an icosphere instead, so it looks like crystals. So icosphere, we make it smaller. Again, we keep it very small, very small. No need to smoothen this. It looks like crystals. So just small, just match one. Then what you need to do is you select your small wire, you select your switch hanger, and you select your sphere and you press slash on the keyboard. So that will isolate the object. Once you have isolated the objects, just move it, resize it, turn on X-ray mode, resize it to fit it inside. And now for the switch beads, you move it up first. All right, now you only have one. Now this is where array modifier comes in handy. So you don't have to copy paste everything all at once. You can just have one single object and have multiple instant copies of it with array modifier. So you click on modifier, you search for array, you add the array modifier. Now you can increase the count, but it's going to the right side. So how do you fix this? On the factor X, you press 0, and the factor Z, you press -1, so it comes to the down part. But you can increase the gap distance by adjusting the Z-axis, and you can just increase the count just to make it look like crystals. Once you have done that, you need to add a bigger sphere at the bottom. So you make a duplicate of this, place it right there on z-axis, remove the array modifier, just increase the size for the big one. Now we'll use the mirror modifier for this, this, and this on this object, so the same things will come on the other side. How to do that? You click on the first object, you add a mirror modifier, right? Once you add a mirror modifier, you click mirror object onto our cylinder. So it's going in the other direction, but we need it here. So to do that, you turn off the x-axis and turn on, check whether if it's y or z. So this is z-axis. So now you know this, since we rotated it in 90 degrees on the x-axis, that's why the axis has y-axis, the axis has changed. Now you do the same for this. You add a mirror modifier and you select the object here and you press Z. You press this one and you can just right click on the first object and press Ctrl L and copy modifiers this way as well. Now you have both the switches on each side on the switch holder, and you can unisolate by pressing slash again. But we are forgetting one thing, the wire, the code. So how to add a code? This is another object. So what will we do? We'll add a curve instead of a mesh this time. So you had a Bezier curve, you just bring it around, you just place it on your, the shape looks fine to me. You don't need any more extra work on this. If you want to edit the shape, you can press the edit mode. I can just make more mess out of it. That's all you have to do. Now you have the code ready. Now what you need to do is go to the curve settings, and same thing which we did for the harp, we increase the depth a little bit. Now we have the code. And with that, every single part of our lamp is done, all modeled as separate, easily editable objects. A good model deserves to be seen properly. Let's add some simple materials and basic lighting setup. First, materials. This is much easier with separate objects. Select your base object, go to Material tab, the red Material Properties tab. Now click on New and add a black shade. We'll turn on the roughness and we'll turn on the metallic halfway. So it gives you slight reflective feel, and we'll check that material in the viewport shading mode. After that, the wire can have a different material but not metallic. So again, black in color, but instead of metallic, you give roughness. Now we have the base ornament and the base, which will be the same color as our stem. So you can select both the objects first, then click on the object which you want to copy the materials from. At the end, press Ctrl L and you can link materials. This one will have the same color as well. Link materials. It has a slight metallic effect, that's why the reflection is visible. Now for the stem, you will give the same color as well. Link materials. And for the bulb holder and the switch, you'll give the same material as well. Now for the lampshade, you can give a off-white creamy feel. So you get a new material, you give a off-white creamy material, increase the roughness, and in the transmission section, and you can increase the transmission a little bit. What transmission does is pass through light, so 0.5 should be fine. And once that is done, you click last material is your light bulb. You select your light bulb. Instead of making a normal material with color, here in surface, you click on emission, and you can give a nice yellow color and give an emission of 20. this will start emitting light. So now one more few things to change. You have the crystals. So what I'll do with the crystal is add a glass material. So for the base color white, make it pure white. I'll give it some metallic, remove the roughness, and decrease the alpha a little bit. This is how you may basically make a transparent, shiny material. So I'll link the materials to the top part as well. And this wire will be same as our switch cable. This is the basic setting for the materials which we're going to use for this tutorial. And we're going to add some lighting to the scene. So first we'll add a plane and increase the size. And select the vertex of the plane. And select the edge, backside edge of the plane, and extrude it upwards. Now this will work as our wall for the renders. After that, you give a white material with max roughness to our plane. Now we need lighting inside the render. So what will we do is we'll add a light, Shift A, add light, and add an area light. So the area light has been added, but now what we need to do is to track the light onto our object. So in the light settings, we go to constraints, and in the constraints, you select the option called track to. Once you click on track to, you'll get this small properties window. Select the object which you need to track the light onto. I'll select the stem, which is right in the middle. I'll select the stem. Now the light is being tracked onto the stem. Now even if I move the light, it'll always track to the stem. Now I'll adjust the lighting area right around here in the corner of the room. I'll increase the light settings, increase the light to, let's say, 100 or 75. Make it a nice warm yellow light. Increase the size so there is no sharp shadows. Let's say 5. Now I'll duplicate this exact same light onto the other side right here, which is tracking the exact same object. And this light, I will reduce the lighting to 20. There you go. Now you have your scene set up. You have your floor lamp, which is lit. Don't worry about the wire not being connected. We'll connect it in some other episode. Now you can also add an HDRI to the entire world map to achieve lighting. I'll show you that right now itself. In the surface, keep background. On the color settings, you select on environment texture. Once you select that, everything turns pink. Don't worry about it. You open an HDRI file. You select your HDRI. I usually go with the small cathedral. It gives you a nice indoor ambience. Once HDRI is loaded, your scene will be lit by that image and you will get great looking realistic reflections in the metal as well. Before we continue, we'll do a quick render. There you go. That's your final render. Smooth, clean, and elegant. In this tutorial, we worked through the absolute core of modeling in Blender. We built a complex object by comparing simple shapes and used a smart stack of modifiers on each piece to refine them. We saw how a modular workflow gives you a freedom to experiment and how control loops and modifiers work together to turn blocky shapes into smooth, weavable objects. This is a workflow you can use for almost anything. the ideas of starting with simple parts, building up the form, and then refining with non-destructive tools. I really hope you will take what you learned today and try designing your own lamp. Try creating a new base, a different stem, or swapping in a crazy lampshade. The power is totally in your hands. Thanks so much for joining me. If you enjoyed this and learned something new, please hit the like button. And if you haven't yet, think about subscribing for more Blender content. Let me know in the comments what you thought and tell me what you would like to see us model next. Now go make something awesome. I'll see you in the next episode.